everyone, and welcome to this year's PAX panel. Today we're going to be talking to you about women in the gaming sphere. This is not just women in esports, this is women in all aspects of gaming. And today here we have four amazing women, well, three, if you count myself extra, but three amazing women for many areas of esports and gaming here to talk to you about their experiences and give you a whole lot of tips and tricks as well on getting involved in this industry. So I'm super excited to announce our panel. I'm MishManners, I'll be your MC and host for today. I'm very, very excited to have Tequila Time, the General Manager of SuperStellar here with us. Hey Tequila, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me here.
Pleasure. We've got Mads Brown, who is the Head of Product and Business Development for Fortress Melbourne. How are you going, Mads?
Good, thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. And we have Vandie, who's currently the Stream Manager and Content Creator for Legacy Esports. How are you going, Vandie?
I'm going fantastic. Thanks, Mish.
I love the Overwatch top two. It's amazing. So what I thought we'd do to kick us off for today is I want you all, rather than just going around introducing yourselves and what you do, I thought what we'd do is talk about the video game that got you into gaming. So maybe we'll start up with the top there and we'll start with Tequila.
Oh, yeah. I take you back to when I was 5 years old. I'm an only child, so my parents got me a PlayStation 1, and my first game on it was Crash Bandicoot. I was a 5-year-old kid. I didn't understand video games, so I had a blast just absolutely getting stuck on the gate level and then somehow beating gate level. And from there, it just sparked my love of video games, and I've just snowballed since.
Yay, that's awesome. Vandie, what got you into video gaming?
Kind of similar, yeah, but a little bit earlier generation of console, but about the same age. I think it was about like 5, 6. At one of those flea markets, my dad bought an NES, and it came with Super Mario, and yeah, just obsessed with it. And after that came the Sega Genesis. So it was like Sonic and Super Mario were my earliest two games that I just played the crap out of and really loved.
Great to hear. Mads, what got you into gaming?
That's an interesting one. I mean, I've been playing games since I feel like I was out of the womb. And I remember distinctly playing games like Zoombinis and even had like an old Tetris console that I'd bring with me in the car. But I feel like the one game that really got me hooked for gaming was Zelda Ocarina of Time. I remember playing I feel like hundreds of hours and replaying over and over again every time it was school holidays, and just like all of the musical elements and the fantasy elements, and just spending hours just running around in the field, like throwing bombs onto the ground, hoping that I'd find like a hole that I could jump into or something like that. That really just made me addicted to gaming from then on.
So did you end up playing the 3D remake of Ocarina of Time?
I've played every Zelda on every console.
That is a lot of gaming. So speaking about gaming, all three of you here work in so many different areas of esports and gaming. So maybe we'll reverse the order this time, and I'd love to tell the audience the type of area of gaming esports that you work in. So we'll start with Mads.
Sure. Okay, so as head of product at Fortress, so Fortress is essentially a new business. We've built a venue in Melbourne, and it's really about a cultural space for all types of gaming. So whether that be esports or console gaming or tabletop gaming or arcade gaming, any type of gaming or anything related to gaming like cosplay and meet and greets and things like that, we really want to have inside of our venue. It's a really new concept. And what I do is I run a team of brilliant people who help me develop all of the products in the business. So anything that a customer experiences or touches or feels or eats or drinks, that's kind of in my realm. And so it's a lot of fun, and every day is really different.
I know a lot of us here are very excited to go back to Fortress Melbourne when and if we eventually get our lockdown. So you're going to have a lot of great business there. So Vandie, tell us the area of esports and gaming that you're working in.
So at the moment, I am the stream manager for Legacy Esports. What that entails is that I have 7 streamers that I currently manage, so day to day, helping them with running their streams, staying on schedule, delivering with our partners, like in terms of any activations, things like that, helping them find new business, just basically taking care of the day-to-day needs that might arise from them. And then also I do commentating on the side as well. So the more entertainment side of esports, those are kind of my 2 jobs.
Fantastic. And it's been great to see you doing so well on the commentating circle as well, and I can't wait to see you back there again when we have more IRL events. Woohoo!
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be a theme of everything, is like when we go back to IRL. Tequila time, what is your area of gaming esports that you work in every day?
Like we said before, I'm the general manager of SuperStellar. We are a organization owned partially by Vandie Capital and Supernova. So we have this beautiful mix of pop culture and gaming here. Our organization is all about creating opportunities for women in gaming, something very near and dear to my heart. We have a content creation team, and I handle everything to do with them. Managing how they're going in their daily lives, in their stream lives, doing socials, and trying to find new ways that we can create content together. And as well, I have a really big passion for highlighting women's talent. So coming up soon, at the time of filming, I'm doing interviews with women in gaming so we can show other women who want to follow their path that, look, here's somebody who's done it, and here's some great advice for them, so if you'd like to follow that.
Amazing. I think that's one of the things that we need to get better at as women doing, is showcasing other cool women, so that people can see the kind of like inspiration and like role models to look up to. So we'll touch on that very soon. What I think we'd start off with, because you know, a lot of people think of gaming, they think of esports, they think of, you know, the pro competitive scene, they think of League of Legends and Dota and things like that. And a lot of them think, you know, it's a very, very male-dominated area. So I'm very keen to hear from you all. Maybe we'll start with Vandie as well, because you end up working with Legacy Esports. Why aren't there more women in the pro esports team? You know, if we look at video gaming overall, it's roughly about a 50-50 split in women and men who play games. So why is there not that representation there in the pro scene?
Talking to other women, especially women who are, you know, highly ranked, and then trying to give them that pathway to going pro, a lot of it just seems to be resistance to how the scene would accept them. So for esports, if you're the only female on a team, oftentimes you feel as though you're joining the boys club. Maybe you don't mesh as well. Even if the guys on your team are nice, rumors from outsiders, especially being like, you know, oh, she's just attention seeking, or she gets carried, things like that. There's also that extra element of needing to prove yourself. If you mess up, more eyes are on you, more pressure is on you. You just don't have the breathing space, because you're almost like a unicorn in the wild and everyone wants to see what you're doing. All eyes are on you. So it really is a harder path to entry, because at every step of the way, you're needing to justify yourself, whereas men just don't have that. They can just join a team. They do bad, that's fine. If you do bad as a woman, they're going to be like, oh, it's because of your gender. Oh, it's because you're getting carried. Oh, it's because of all these other negative things that have nothing to do with you at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think so. That was a few years ago. The Overwatch player Guguri played for Shanghai Dragons, I think.
Yep.
She was accused of cheating because everyone's like, "There's no way a woman could be this good." So does anyone have any comments on this? I mean, she obviously showed everyone that she wasn't cheating,
Yeah.
but she was in tears while she was showing everyone that she's actually that good. So I'm keen to hear people's thoughts on that.
Yeah, I remember that story, because for me, she really paved the way, because of course we know Overwatch League had millions invested into it. It was probably the first time that they could really cover a story. Like, we have seen women break out, but not so much in team games. Normally in solo, like Hearthstone and StarCraft have women competing and doing quite well. Of course, it's harder to shine the spotlight. There's less drama involved because they're not part of a team. It's more just, I'm representing myself. But for Giguri, of course, Overwatch is a team of 6. She was one of them. And then to actually have to go to a LAN cafe to prove how good she was, with people verifying it. And as you said, she didn't need to go through these steps, but the fact that she did and she pushed past, now she's probably one of the most beloved, renowned players in Overwatch League. Like, it wouldn't be the same without her. But she had such a high barrier to entry. And at any step of the way, she could have just said, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm just going to quit.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about Geguri, if I remember correctly, is she came out and said that she doesn't want to be a poster child for women in the industry, and she doesn't want to have to be an advocate and stand up every day and talk about why it's so important to have women in the industry. And I think that's really fascinating, because it's exactly what you're saying, Vandie. It's like, being a woman means that you have all of this extra expectation on top of you to have to do all these extra things that no one else would be asked to do. Mm-hmm. And so for her, it was just, she just wanted to play and do well and not have anyone talk about what her gender is or why she got there or how she could have got there. It was just, let my performance in the server dictate how much you respect me or not.
Mm.
And it goes back to this idea that you're always having to be this extra identity on top of being a pro player. Like, you can't just be a pro player. It's always like, well, why are you here? Or are you cheating? Or you suck, you're getting carried all constantly. It would be such a huge burden to have to carry every single day.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this, Tequila, especially since you've got, the all-women streaming team that you've got there.
Yeah, so I, just piggybacking off these conversations as well, there's such a big barrier to entry as well when, women have to go through this extra level of copying abuse online. Jumping in comms into competitive games is something that everybody does. We jump onto comms in CSGO, Overwatch, and other associated games. But it's really difficult when you hear somebody just go, oh, go to the kitchen, make me a sandwich, or you just should get on support because you're a woman. And it's this mental abuse that sort of just chips away, unfortunately. And it takes a lot of resilience and I guess a lot of training as well to get past that. But if you hear something enough, you can start to believe it, unfortunately. And it's also a mental fortitude. Like, it's just too hard for me to go and play competitively. I don't want to have to deal with that on a daily basis. And it's changing. Society is changing, and we are seeing some wonderful people, men especially, coming out and being like, no, we stand up for these women, and we also can see in our own lives that there are always men who get on and go, hey mate, just give it a break, give it a rest, let it play the game. But it is just extra barrier for us when we want to jump on comms and go a little bit more public with our competitive play.
And I think that part is very interesting because when I talk to people about that kind of concept, they go, oh, that doesn't happen. And I'm like, yes, it does. Like, I've experienced myself. Like, I want to hear from the three of you. Have you experienced stuff like this? I mean, you don't have to share a personal story, but have you experienced this kind of stuff online?
I think the question should be, have you experienced it this week online?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I have.
Yeah, absolutely. To the point where I think Overwatch was my worst. I mean, I love Overwatch, yes. Played a lot of time of it, but Overwatch actually gave me my anxiety to voice comm. Never really had an issue. Played shooters all throughout my life. Call of Duty, Battlefield, CSGO, things like that. Never really had an issue. Overwatch, for some reason, was the straw that broke the camel's back. Now I have pretty bad anxiety about trying to use comms. I think it's kind of weird because everyone's like, oh, you cast all the time, you're comfortable in front of a mic. And I'm like, I can barely talk to my team in Valorant when I'm trying to play because I'm just scared. If I'm not performing well, that one guy is going to be like, you suck, And I'm like, I don't. Like, leave me alone. Having a bad day, having a bad game. So I only really feel comfortable talking if conditions are met. And for me, that's doing well so that they can't really pick on me because of that.
Oh,
right?
I was just about to say the same thing, Vandie. I always wait a few rounds. If I'm top fragging, then I'm brave enough to talk because then they can't talk crap about
nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
I am the same way, guys. I agree. I play a lot of Overwatch. I love playing competitive too, but I have been very scared to play recently. I after having a long day of work, I want to come home and I'm still at home. I don't leave, but I want to turn on my gaming computer and I just want to have fun. And I just don't need somebody who's got some sort of complex, bringing me down a notch. And while I have enough mental fortitude to be able to get over it, just for that second, you're like, man. So I just don't get on comms anymore. Screw it. I'm on Discord with my mates.
And I think the biggest difference here, because everyone goes, oh, but it's toxic for everyone. It's like, yeah, but if you're a guy, it's just like, oh, you suck, go practice more. Whereas if you're a girl, and I'm sure you've all experienced it, I've experienced myself, it's you suck because you're a girl, because you're not supposed to be here, because you should be in the kitchen. Like, the amount of times that I'm like, you should be in the kitchen, I'm just like, it's just so old now. Tequila, you mentioned it's changing, and we're happy it's changing. So what are the kind of things that we're seeing that are changing, and how can we see, or how can we encourage this change a bit more?
Absolutely. I'm a big advocate of education and awareness, kind of killing it with kindness, to be honest. I don't believe in arcing up and being like, the men who do this are bad, because that just doesn't get anywhere. Instead, we celebrate the people who are doing the right thing. And I recently read a post on Twitter, and I can't remember exactly where it stemmed from, but it was really lovely seeing the comments, and there were males in there just going, no, I'm going to stand up for women, or I already do stand up for women, or I don't let women around me cop that. And it was really encouraging to see this. So I am a big advocate of kill it with kindness and just encouraging the right behaviors rather than punishing the wrong behaviors. It's like, oh God, this sounds so bad, but can you just bear with me for a moment? It's like training dogs. You always praise them for the good behavior. You don't punish the dogs because then they get scared and they lash out. So
yeah, positive training methods. Positive reinforcement. I think that's kind of the same thing, or like queuing with friends, and as you said, just having that support group of other males that can tell off people for that behavior. Just be like, it's a girl, get over it. And then you when it comes from another guy like that, it kind of just like sets the tone. And I think that's what that Twitter video that you were talking about, Tequila, that guy kind of explained. He's like, it just takes like 1 or 2 times for someone who engages in that behavior for it to completely get shut down. And I have to say, I've actually been really surprised on the times when I have chosen to share mic. I would say out of like 1 out of 10 of my ranked games, someone has a problem. But again, like I was just really pleasantly surprised. I was expecting to be so much more, especially because I really love playing comp modes. But I just have to have more faith, I suppose, in the community, because attitudes are shifting for sure.
Mm-hmm. Great to hear. I'm really excited that attitudes are shifting. I think they're shifting across the whole industry as well. We kind of touched on this a little bit, and Vandie, you touched on it, so we'll start with you. But what's it like being a woman in the content creation space? You know, obviously it's quite difficult getting into the pro scene. What about the content creation space? And then we'll kind of go around the video feed.
Yeah, that's kind of its whole can of worms, isn't it? Everyone seems to think that if you're a woman, you've got this innate advantage to streaming, to content creation, to influencer life. But in reality, when you always look at who the top percentile are, it's always men. Women aren't able to crack it. Yeah, maybe if you took the middle section, it might be more woman dominated. But again, males are always that top percentile for streaming and content creation. And again, it just adds the same kind of layer where people are like, oh, you've got this ticket handed to you just because you've got breasts and good looks and things like that. So being in that content creation space, and I suppose being in the public eye, you can cop a lot more abuse just for, again, your gender.
Mm-hmm.
I really agree with you there, Vandie, with the whole content creation stuff. I'm a woman, and I am well endowed, and despite covering up and everything, you will still get men going, oh, just making horrible remarks about a part of my body that I can't control. And that's a really big prevalent thing. And when you're live as well and you read the comment, you have to keep your poker face, and it's just it's unfortunate that we really cop it online in content creation, because we just don't see men copping abuse online like the way we do about just our physical appearance. And I think that's very much an attitude change as well, and just shutting that shit down.
I feel like OnlyFans has helped with that, by women who have what they've got and can put a price tag on it. And then it kind of turned the tables when men are like, well, we're paying for this. Hey, now women have all the power. But of course, that's a different type of content creation space. Maybe not every woman would be into it. But I think what you said, just the physical appearance, you can't control it. Or what if you want, we want to look sexy. We want to have fun. But people are like, nah, all you've done is just use your body to get your views. Titties are taking my views. And you're like, what?
On that note, though, I am a big believer in, it's your body, your choice. You can do whatever you want. You're an autonomous human being. And if a lady out there would like to, wear lots of cleavagey dresses, go ahead. That's fine. There's no problems. You shouldn't have a problem with that, because she's doing her thing. You stay in your own lane. So I'm a big believer in just if it's not affecting you, why say anything?
Yeah.
I love that. Stay in your own lane. I think it's so true, right? The amount of times that I have quite good mods on my channel as well, but the amount of times that it just comes up and you're just like, oh, it's gonna be one of those nights. And they seem to come in waves together. But yeah, so what can we do in terms of, you know, we talked a little bit about what women can do in the pro space and men kind of amplifying the voices of women, that kind of space for the pro scene. Is it the same kind of thing in the content creation space as well, to amplify the voices of women and to sort of not feel those kind of like comments and remarks all the time, or what can we do?
It's a wriggly can of worms.
Yeah.
So I deal with a lot of streamers. So while we're live streaming, the best thing that I could sort of recommend and encourage is just having a little filter in your brain and not reading out every comment as they come in and not reacting. Because more often than not, people are saying something to get a reaction out of the person streaming. So by acknowledging it and giving them a response, it's validating them in a way. So what we can do is not give validation to the people that want to get a rise out of us, unfortunately. And yeah, instead, things that I've personally done is welcome them into the stream. Mm-hmm. See how they're going.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas there, Vandie?
No, I just really liked what you said, where you take the reverse approach. You, again, kill them with kindness. So if someone is being really mean to you, you're just like, cool, thanks, I know. And they just don't know how to react because they're just like, what? You're supposed to be timing me out, blocking me, stuff like that. Of course, if they escalate, you have your moderation tools. That should always be when, you know, the line is crossed. Do not hesitate. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Your moderators are there to help you. Your community is there to help you. I have one streamer that I help manage as well. And her community reacts real interestingly to trolls, right? Because they all shut down the troll. She doesn't have to do anything. She's just like, hey, mate, I mean, like, cool, that's your point of view, whatever, keeps playing. And then you see the chat just literally stack on that person being like, what about you? What have you got to show for yourself? Oh, mate, show us a picture so we can rate you, stuff like that. And then the trolls is like, whoa, I didn't sign up for this. So just surround yourself with like-minded people, chill people who've got your back.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, any of the times that I've kind of experienced that, yeah, same thing, right? You build this good community around you and you kind of all like help one another. So we talked a little bit about the pro scene and the content scene. Mads, I'm really interested to hear about like the more businessy corporate side of things and, you know, how it all plays out on your end.
Yeah, well, maybe this will be the first bit of positive news for the night, but no. It's actually, it's funny, once you start working in the games industry, you get exposed to a huge amount of your industry peers in different sectors, be that game development or through agencies or marketing agencies, players, organizations, things like that. I spend most of my day in meetings and I'm pleasantly surprised that most of them have a really healthy amount of women in them. In my team as well, we've got more women than men, which is great. It might have something to do with me. But no, it's actually a pleasant surprise when you get in the scene because there's so much talked about, you know, female equality in the esports scene and in the players, and it's really stark. And when you get into the business side, there are a lot of people just knocking it out of the park every single day, day in and day out, that you get to meet and you didn't even know exist beforehand. But I think one thing that I found really interesting is I've done a lot of hiring for many different positions. And what's always baffling for me is that just how few women actually apply for jobs that they would love and that they would consider their dream job, but they always just feel like they would never be good enough, which blows my mind because when I do interviewing, generally it's the women who are the most assertive and the most creative and the most proactive. And it's really incredible sometimes when you see the quality of the applicants come through. A huge chunk of them might not have the experience, but definitely have the ambition and the drive and the crazy want to be in that role. And usually they're men and not women. So it's a really interesting thing. I think, I mean, I've always said this throughout my time, is that for women, they often see a job description, and if they can only do 9 out of the 10 things, they go, oh, well, it's not for me, I'm not good enough. Whereas for men, they see that they can do 2 out of the 10 things and go, yeah, I mean, I can contribute and I can learn and grow in this role, which is really the mindset that you should be having, because every time you move into a new role, you should be thinking, how can I contribute to this business with my skills, but also what am I developing on my own end from doing this role? And if you're moving into a role where you know 100% you can do that perfectly with no issues, then you've got a problem there, because you're not growing and you're not developing as you move throughout your career. So I think for me, when I do hiring and I look at teams around the industry, I often think that sometimes the way that the system is set up now doesn't necessarily encourage women to take a chance and take a risk and really want to go for a job that they think that they could be good at and develop in as well. And it's about giving those people a chance and bringing them out of that mix to go, hang on, maybe, the application process wasn't great, but let's bring you in for an interview, because that's really where you see how good someone is, how they're going to shine, how they might mix with your team culture. And my advice for any women out there who are looking to get into the games industry is to just apply for jobs that they would want to work in, basically.
Yeah, we're definitely going to come back to that too, about tips and advice. But I think what's really important there too is that this isn't just a problem in the games industry. It's across so many different industries. The fact that, women don't apply for jobs that, that they don't tick all the boxes for. And this kind of skewed approach, I suppose, to so many men applying for jobs. So we're definitely going to come back to this part. But before we go on to the next bit, what I'm interested in, so we've talked about women in business, we've talked about them in content creation, we've talked about them in the pro scene, and I think what we're all leaning towards, and if people haven't heard us loud and clear yet, we're saying it's very important to have women in these roles and in this industry. But I think the question that probably a lot of people are asking, or at least thinking, is why is it actually important to have that representation there in the first place? So let's start with Tequila, actually. Start with you.
Yeah, no, I feel having women in positions just in general definitely contributes to whatever that thing is, culture. And giving your experience as a woman or as a person of color, giving your experience to that role is very important. And that's how we're able to produce, whether it's like a video game or content, or even if it's just more subtly than that, but being able to lend a woman's perspective to it ensures that whatever's going out is not insensitive to women, or it definitely hits the mark, because we have seen recently things that have missed the mark. And it's really important that if a woman had been consulted on certain things, perhaps that wouldn't have gone out like that. I would like to raise a point of Mads. She made a comment on an esports dress that went out, asking if any women had actually been consulted did the design process of this dress, and the company actually wrote back and said, oh no, no women were actually consulted. So would you make a product for a woman where no women were consulted or even a part of that design? So that whenever this topic comes up, I'm like, I just think about Matt's question to those people. And women's experience is really important.
Yeah, I 100% agree, because if we're letting men just make all of these decisions, again, maybe women's needs will never be met, things will never really change, and then there'll just always be that kind of disparity in terms of how both genders are viewed. Because already in terms of traditional, taking esports and gaming out of the equation, even just traditional workplaces, women really had to fight to get a lot of the rights that men had in the workplace and even in our day-to-day lives, to shape that whole women are just the sole stay-at-home mom, raise the kids, that sort of thing, where some cultures still very much believe that, and women don't have the same rights that we do over here in the Western sort of world.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of data and research conducted around the benefits of having a diverse workplace, especially to have women in a workplace. But I think from a more personal note, I started at Fortress quite early on, when we were still designing the venue itself. And there were just so many things that made me realize that it's really, truly impossible to create a good product for someone when you don't understand them. And it might not be that you dislike them or that you have made an effort to not understand their perspective. It may just be that you've never lived their life. And when we were going through the building of the venue, I was like, oh, well, we need hooks on the back of the women's bathroom stalls, because you need to hang your bag up or your coat up when you go to the bathroom. And all the guys in the room were like, oh, oh yeah, true, we never thought of that. Or, you know, I'd say, oh, that corner, it's like, it's a bit dark, I wouldn't really feel safe going into that area. And they were like, oh, why? Why would that be an issue? And I'm like, oh, well, you know, there's been multiple times that I've been accosted in a dark area at a venue before, and I don't feel safe. Or, hey guys, you know, there's absolutely no way that there are going to be bigger male bathrooms than female bathrooms in this venue, because you're setting up the venue then to say that we're going to have more men than women in this place, and we cannot do that. What we want is for inside to look exactly like what you would see out on the street, and you're not going to have people want to come in if the space hasn't been built for them. And all those little things, they just really don't click until you speak to someone who has lived that life, and they can say, actually, you know, this is a really small thing that you could change that would make me feel 100% better to be in this space.
Mm-hmm. I think you both brought up some really good examples. I love your personal experiences there too, Mads. Is there any other examples that anyone wants to bring up that have like something that's been released that's just completely hit the mark, or, you know, women weren't consulted on it, or and then as a result the product's either failed or not done as well as it should have?
We were discussing actually before this, all of us were getting together and discussing that E3 had released an article about like top 25 games that women love to play. And so you're like, this is kind of cool. I'm wondering, as a woman, what are other women interested in? You click it, and the number one thing says Sudoku. And then the alarm bells really start to ring. Other mentionable games on that list included stuff like Kim Kardashian's mobile game. Was it just like Overwatch? It was
Candy Crush.
Candy Crush. Oh my goodness! Like, but again, Sudoku is number one, and it wasn't even spelt right, which was the most horrifying part.
Oh wow!
It just completely just went whoosh. And then you read this as a woman, and you just feel horrified. You're like, people still have this view. Someone consulted, someone put this together, put it in front of their editor. It was approved. The content guy, whoever or girl, whoever it was, read it and was like, yeah, we should post this. So the whole thing to 2.2 million followers on Twitter. And I'm like, it just blew the mind. It was horrifying. That really did miss the mark.
Yeah, that is a really interesting point, though, that goes back towards that question of why aren't there more women in esports? And for me, I think this is a huge pipeline issue. There just aren't enough women getting into games that lend themselves to esports at an early age, because people look at little girls and they go, I'm going to buy them The Sims, or I'm going to buy them Candy Crush, instead of buying them Counter-Strike or Overwatch or, COD or something like that. And so when you get to a point where these and usually it's teenagers who are actually getting really good and looking at the pro scene, none of the women are there because they've all been playing Sims, not because they have wanted to, but because, you know, their uncle or their brother or their dad thought that that was the game that they want to play.
And do you think that's changing though?
I don't know. I speak to a lot of parents, and they would never even think of getting their little girl a shooter, pretty much. I only ever got into it because my dad and my brother played it, and they had no issues with me playing as well. But I would never have been introduced to it otherwise.
I think you had a point, Tequila. You want to?
Oh, I was just recently reading the Digital Australia 20 report, and the thing that really stuck out to me is that in their report, they say 47% of all gamers are women. Mm-hmm. And that's just crazy. We're almost at 50-50 splits now, and yet we are still seeing my little girl probably want to play Sims. Mm-hmm. But for my boy, I buy my boy Halo.
Yeah.
I would like... Go ahead.
No, you keep going.
I would like to see things marketed differently, to be honest. Yeah. We see marketing of like The Sims, for example, and it's a very lovely, casual, fluffy game, if you want to look at their marketing. And then we see Halo, it's like badass, shoot the things, aliens. And I think it's a whole societal change that needs to happen as well. So we don't just go bang, bang, aliens, boys, and we don't go lovely, fluffy, decorating women. I honestly believe there is a societal shift that has to happen when we even think about games for this to change.
Well, we're like such a good example right now as well, because you're tying that literally back down to even toys. Like Barbies were for girls, G.I. Joes for the boys. girly is pink, blue is for boys. And I'm like, but you've got such a great, like, all of us right here in this course, so diverse in what we've liked, what our tastes are like for games and things like that. Like, I love The Sims, sure, but I also love shooters. But again, it's the marketing that needs to change. And what Mad said as well, you just haven't lived their life. Ask them what they want. For the first time, my mum was just like, what would you like for your birthday? I was like, I really want a gaming chair. And this is the one I'm currently sitting on. And she's like, oh, cool. Like, I'm glad I asked you. Yeah, we'll definitely chip in for that. You spend so much time on work and like, you know, like playing games and stuff. That makes sense to us. But just ask, talk to these people. Don't just assume what the girl wants. Like, ask them.
I asked for a bow and arrow for Christmas. I didn't get one. Like a proper
Oh, I mean, maybe that's
I got a dress instead. So.
Oh no! Not even just like one with the suction cups. Is that the one you asked for?
I wanted a proper like compound bow. Like,
Of course you did.
I mean, I think it was badass, but I guess they had other plans. They could have started you off with the suction cup one to, make sure you were trustworthy, and then upgraded you.
We're on a farm, so I was actually planning it to protect our herd. But yeah, so.
So you got asked and then overruled.
Well, I think I'd love to hear your thoughts on this first, Vandie, and then from Mads and Tequila. But are some games changing the dynamic here? Like, if we look at games like Overwatch, for example, I know you love Overwatch, Vandie, which is why I'm starting with you. You know, that is much more diverse in its, its hero lineup. You can choose to play as a woman. You can choose to play as diverse women. You can choose to play as people of color. Are games like that starting to shift any of this kind of mindset, or is it still shooters for boys, pink for girls?
No, I think Overwatch is definitely one of the games that comes to mind in terms of breaking down how FPS were perceived. Like, it's bright, it's colorful, it's fun. Fortnite, another one. They don't really feel gender specific or gender tailored. A huge reason of that is, again, because of the skins and characters covering a wide variety. Like, there's aliens, there's bananas, there's monkeys. There's just not really one thing that's tied to. Yes, there's people of color as well, which is super duper important, but that's like a whole other thing. By having that diversity and not really tying it, it really just mimics the real world. And that's why they just feel so gender accepting, essentially, because I can pick this character and I like them because of their personality. They resonate with me. And it doesn't matter if that character is like a giant guy who carries a mace and it's me playing it. Like, I just like his personality. Like, my favorite character in League of Legends is a guy named Set, and all he does is punch it. He's a meathead. He's a Chad. And I adore him. He's like my favorite character they've released ever since like some of the more badass girl characters. But again, it just has that diverse roster, and that's just what clicked with me. Like, I adore him. And he like adores his mom, and I was like, oh my God, he's a mama's boy. So like, he's soft. I think so, yeah. That's what games need to be. Don't just focus on, girls being all pretty and skimpy and stuff like that. Show badass women. Show real women. Doesn't matter how they're dressed, essentially, but personality counts for so much. Don't just be the damsel in distress for girls, or don't just put them in a support role, right?
Mm-hmm. Great. Mads or Tequila, do you want to comment on that at all?
I mean, for me, I think having female roles in shooters and like stuff like League. I mean, I play Darius, so I'm like the big burly guy. But for me, what I really noticed, so I've played Counter-Strike for forever and ever, and they always have the male characters that are really true to life. And one thing that I've really loved about playing Valorant and watching Valorant is hearing teammates call other players by the gender of the character. So just hearing, oh my God, she was amazing, or like she did an amazing like ace, or just hearing that it just pricks my ears up, and it makes such a big difference to how I feel about a game, and feeling like I'm actually in a place that people want me in and that I feel comfortable in, and listening to pro games where the commentators are saying like, oh, she's got this incredible ability, and talking like that. I didn't think it would, but it makes such a big impact on me. And it's something that's really surprised me, but I just think it's such a wonderful thing to hear people praising women and the female gender, in games like shooters.
Definitely.
I'm a big believer of video games reflecting real life. Obviously, there's high fantasy stuff where, things can get a little bit funky, but we look at Overwatch, for example. I am a big fan of Overwatch, and I really enjoy that the different races are not just like a token. It's like a token POC. It's like, no, we're introducing Ana, Anna is a POC because she's Farah's mother, and it's this nice logical in-universe thing. You know, Overwatch is this global company or organization, so it would make sense that there are POCs, and like this gets a bit away from the whole woman thing, but it's still very much video games going, there are brown people in the world, we should include brown people. And as an Indian woman who has always felt, I guess, ashamed of being an Indian person because I always wanted to be a white kid, that is just beautiful.
10+1 that.
Yeah, I can't
Yes.
but on the Asian side, yes, I completely agree. It is something, again, one of those things where you see it, and especially someone like Sage in Valorant, I look at her and I'm like, it's just so nice to be able to see someone who represents your culture, basically.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the stuff I talk about too goes much further beyond just gender diversity. It goes into what I call just general diversity, you know, having different people and people of color and people of different backgrounds and race and even things like age and socioeconomic backgrounds. I think having all the different types of diversity is, you know, again, it comes back to, I think what you were saying, Mads, if you don't take into account people's experiences and lived experiences, you don't build good products for them, whether it's a game, whether it's a esports venue, whether you're streaming or creating content that way. And so I think that's why it's really important. I think that's kind of like the part we've landed on. So we've got about 20 minutes left, and I think I'd like to spend this next 20 minutes talking about really practical tips. We're going to focus on women here because again, go get 'em girl panel, but really practical tips for women to get involved in the industry. And I know Maddie already brought up a couple, so I think we'll start with you. You know, how to get involved in you know, the business side of esports and gaming. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think as what many people would call like a fledgling industry, a lot of people think, and also it's an industry that people are extremely passionate about. So all of our stories about our first game were all when we were, you know, below the age of 5 or 6. So for us, it's something that's so close to our hearts. It's such a big passion. We spend so much of our lives playing games. It often feels like people are getting into school and they have no idea what they want to do. They don't know if they want to go to uni, and they're like, you know what, I love games. I want to get into games. And they try to get into the community, and they sort of get stuck because they don't really know what they want to do. A lot of the time I get people coming to me and saying, hey, Mads, you know, I really want to work in esports. I really want to work in gaming. If you see a job, please let me know. And if you can help me out and give me a good word here or there, that would be amazing. And I sort of respond, great. Well, what do you want to do? What are you good at? And they go, oh, I'll do anything. And for me, to say that you'll do anything really means that you haven't thought about what you're good at and what you want to develop at and what you're not good at. And saying something like, I'll do anything means that I'll probably, when a job comes up, not remember that you've asked, because you're not saying, hey, you know, I really enjoy the promotional side of games. I really want to get into marketing, or I love esports. I really want to get into management. I have no idea what I want to do, but I'm really good at problem solving, or I'm really good at public speaking, or something like that. That for me, that sticks in my mind, and I go, great. If you're good at that, then I can take that and help you get something that you can develop that skill, and you can develop other skills and really learn and grow. As this industry gets bigger and bigger, it's harder and harder to just have a passion for gaming and just get into gaming. You really need to be developing a lot of other skills, and it's much easier to move across than it is to come up from the bottom. So it is, I think, important getting life skills in other industries, get yourself into a professional environment, develop skills that you can use in many different industries. I mean, I've jumped around. My career has been just weird and bizarre, but I always think that, you know, a lot of people say to me, how have you moved from the legal industry to government to business development and now into product in so many different industries? And for me, it's all just the same skill set applied to a different set of environments or circumstances. So people really need to think about not what they want to do or what their dream job is, but what are they good at? What do they want to learn? Where do they, not where do you want to see yourself in 20 years, but who do you want to be in 20 years? You know, what are those skills that you want to develop? And that will give you such a better a suite of options as you move forward into your career, because you're not pigeonholing yourself into a particular industry or a particular job. And I always say to people that say to me, oh, well, I want to be the CEO of this in 20 years, or I want to be the head of marketing of here in 20 years. And I just say to them, you're setting yourself up for failure in both ways, because if you don't get that job, you feel like a failure. And if you get that job, well, are you just meant to be satisfied with that for the rest of your life? For me, I think you should always be hungry. You should always be wanting to develop and learn and grow. And if you've gotten to that point, you might find suddenly you've achieved your goal, and then what's next? You know, life is a journey. It's not just an endpoint. So, you know, for anyone who's looking for a job, be it men or women, but I think especially women who find it difficult to put themselves out there and to really get the ear of people, it's about how do you prove to someone that you've got a skill that they would be stupid to not want to bring into their business, pretty much.
Great advice. Vandie, you go down to the bottom corner. Your turn.
Yeah, I'll touch more on the commentating side, because I feel otherwise I might be taking some of Tequila's points away and rehashing what Mads was saying.
Okay.
No, it's fine. But this is an area that
a lot of people will be very keen to hear about how to get into shoutcasting, commentating. So
yeah, that's what I was hoping, especially for women, because again, predominantly it is usually men commentating a lot. Like there are genuinely like a handful of women that really made it to the top and made themselves renowned for commentating. But a lot of the time, as Mads kind of touched on, women just really aren't considering it to be a viable path or something. Again, the boys do it. I'm just happy staying in the shadows. Like the limelight's not for me. Definitely is. For commentating, my advice, regardless of gender, is to just do it. If you're genuinely interested in it, it's a skill that can be trained. Public speaking can definitely help you, or training in something like broadcasting, drama, things like that can definitely really help, especially if you're a little bit shy. You are on camera. But what's more important, like what's most important about commentating is just your personality and how you present on camera, because you need to be professional and you need to have a good work ethic. Stamina, again, is something that you can build up. But the biggest thing, say, if you're looking for a gig, is to just have a show reel of work that you've done. So it can just be time-stamped URLs to things that you've done in the past, or if you're just starting out, just get some VODs. It could be your friend, it could just be a series of Twitch rivals, or just like a big competitive event that just happened. Mute it and cast over it. Get a friend to help you if you'd like, or you can solo cast. You can do both the analyst role and also the play-by-play role. But just go for it. You start to get an idea of what you then need to improve on, whether it be like your pacing, your tone. You can then send it off to others for feedback. But if you are asking for a job, the first thing that they're going to ask you for commentating is, cool, I'd love to see an example of your work. And if you're like, oh, well, I was kind of hoping that I could just do it for you. And like, it doesn't really work like that. So really hone your skills, come up with a professional. We'll work on your branding as well. Social media can definitely not be underrated or undersold for that, because again, you kind of become a personality. So it really helps if people know who you are and can really, if you can network within the industry. But the biggest thing is don't just keep thinking about it, actually do it. Investing in a good mic is also something that will help you in the long run, because again, it's all about your vocal clarity and stuff like that. And we are in pandemic times at the moment. We may be having more of these pandemics in the future. So online broadcast is definitely something that you need to be able to adapt to. Invest in your equipment. I'm not saying go out and spend like $1 gajillion, but don't just be using your headset mic where possible, you know? Invest in yourself and really set yourself up for success.
Love it. Tequila.
Oh, I love both of your points so much, and a lot of that is so applicable to content creation and streaming. The best advice that I can give, if you would like to get into it, is that understanding that streaming or content creation is the tip of the iceberg. There is a multitude of things that you will need to do underneath that as well. You have to market yourself, you have to network yourself, and you know, if you want to put out stream highlights and whatnot, that's all self-directed. I'm a big believer in multi-skilling as well. So we look at me, for example. I have a bachelor in science, but I work in life insurance, and yet I'm doing SuperStellar stuff. It's very interesting, but things can teach you different skills. You have to just be aware that turning on the camera and being your presence is great and all that, but make sure you've got your socials going, make sure you're connecting with others in the community, and reinvesting time and energy back into building a community. I have very unconventional advice, and that is, so testosterone can help you feel a sense of bravado, and perhaps that goes back to Mads' point of why a lot of men apply for jobs that they're not exactly qualified for. But a shot or two of alcohol will actually give you a testosterone boost. So if you remember what that feeling's like, I hold on to that feeling, and it gives me the confidence to be able to go and talk to people who I would otherwise be nervous talking to, or doing things that necessarily give me anxiety. So I'm a big believer in kind of faking it till you're making it, if that makes any sense. And also understanding that, if you want to be a streamer or content creator, it's so much hard work, and you've really got to love the journey and not just the destination of streaming and the fame and fortune that possibly could come with it. So make sure you're enjoying it is the biggest thing of this journey.
I think so. So what I'm hearing is you gotta like what you do, which is great, and you pretty much just gotta go for it. That's part of the reason why I titled this panel like I did, because I think, as Mads pointed out too, a lot of women just don't go for the roles and don't do the things just because, for whatever reason, really. I mean, Tequila, you're saying, you just got to turn on the camera and do it. Vandie, you just got to, grab a video and start voting over it. And Mads saying you've just got to apply. And I think that is like our number one advice for everyone. Is like, you just got to go and do it. So for those women who don't have that drive and don't have that, they're worried about going and do it. What do we tell them? Like, how do we get them to get that motivation, to get that drive, to actually go do the things? Because as we pointed out in this panel, it's really important to have women's voices in all the industries across esports and gaming. So how do we help them?
I am a big advocate of just chatting to other women. We're all humans on the other side of a Twitter profile. Doesn't matter how many thousands of followers you have. Like me, for example, I love chatting to people about their motivations and how to get engaged in things. And I think that's a big thing as well. Just talking to someone gets you out of your own brain, and talking to someone who instills confidence into you is really important. I believe in the power of community, and while it might be quite scary to message that person, what's the worst that's going to happen? I have crippling anxiety, so what's the worst that's going to happen? They're just not going to respond, and that's a way to just overcome that and to be able to connect with people.
I'm really glad that you said that, because again, a lot of people always come to me and they're like, you're amazing. Like, how are you able to do this in front of camera? But people don't realize that the older I get, the more introverted I'm becoming. You don't have to be the loudest in the room. You just, again, if maybe just taking a small little sip of alcohol helps you or something like that, or doing something that you really love, if the passion is there, you'll definitely find a way. But remember, what you're comparing yourself to is very much the same thing about social media. It's always everyone putting their best version of themselves out there. Remember that the human beings at the end of the day, we all came from humble beginnings. We all started from somewhere. It is all about the journey that you have to kind of go. But if you never start the journey, you'll never know where you end up. Or if you never try, maybe you'll just end up with all of these regrets. Again, it's not for everyone. You may try it and you may hate it. You may try it and it doesn't really go anywhere after about a year of devoting time to it. That's okay. It's okay, because you can, again, channel those skills into something else, or at least, you put that to rest. You're like, cool, I did it, I can at least still be proud of that and share those stories, the friends, the adventures, the memories that you had along the way. So don't just focus on the end point. Don't just focus on what you've seen others do. Just focus on yourself.
I'd also really recommend getting a mentor if you can, because I think one thing that I've realized as I've matured is a lot of these people I look up to and go, wow, I could never do what you do. How have you been so successful? How have you done so many incredible things? And then you get to know them and they tell you, I've been just failing my way through life the whole time, and I've got no idea what I'm doing ever, because I'm always putting myself in new situations and challenging myself, and that's how they've succeeded in life, is actually by putting themselves out there. And it's really nice sometimes to get a little bit of perspective, because often, especially when you're wanting to get into a career or wanting to get into an industry that you can't really penetrate, and you're on social media a lot and you're in this kind of echo chamber of people you think are important, but they're actually not really. Sometimes just taking a step back and going, actually, this is a really small corner of the universe, and there are all these other people that have had so many successes and failures, and you can learn so much from that. And having a moment to step back and not really get into your head and worry, well, if I start casting, will people think that I'm an idiot or I'm bad, or will my idol Vandie think that I'm terrible and not want to, respond to my DM or something? It's like, just for a second, get out of that headspace and stop worrying just for a second. Talk to someone who you respect, and you can kind of pick their brain a little bit, and that is often all the confidence you need to go and get out there and do something.
And I'd love to share a couple of tips of practical advice from each of you. I know right now, a lot of my advice is always walk up to Fortress Melbourne and go chat to people, go to PAX or IAM and go and speak to someone. But obviously we can't do that right now, not just here in Melbourne or Sydney or Australia, but all around the world, people aren't able to get out and get to events. So what are some of your practical tips and advice for people to either find a mentor, to connect with others, and to get some of that advice and to get out of that echo chamber? Like, what can they do?
Pretty sure probably all of our DMs here are open, or if not, just tweet publicly. Twitter, signing yourself up for Twitter is a great thing if you don't have it. Twitter and esports, just for some reason, that just happened to be the platform. LinkedIn is also pretty good, surprisingly, for the more business side, 100%. Invest in those two platforms, and then again, reach out and have these conversations. There's also a ton of Discord communities that you can join and be a part of. If you're looking for like-minded people, if you're looking for friendly communities who can really uplift and bring you up and share the same interests, 100% invest in those, especially as you said, because we can't physically go out to these. And there's a ton of content on coaches and things on YouTube. I know on the content creation side, there's Harris Heller, Ashley Christ and stuff like that, who I just love watching their videos, because even if it's not so much about the content creation side I'm focused about, just to have the uplift from people who have gone through these different paths. And again, just sharing how they did it, or what worked for them, their own personal journeys. It's always really uplifting to hear.
I'm a big fan personally of jumping into streams, especially smaller streamers, and communicating with them, asking them about their journey and what they've done to get to where they are. There is no one path, there is no one right way. So understanding how other people have walked the walk is very interesting. It's really great to see that. And, hey, at the end of that stream, you might have been able to connect with them on Discord or Twitter, and you might be able to pick their brain, or you might have made a new friend. Responding to people's tweets is really important as well. Engaging with that person, even if you say something like, hey, I really love your content. I was wondering if you had any advice for me to start content creation. What program do you use, for example? The worst that's going to happen is that they don't reply, and that's okay. That's no problems. That's no skin off your nose. So practical tips are talk to streamers. They're there. They want to talk to people. Grassroots level, banding together and uplifting each other together is really important. And you'll notice as well, a lot of grassroots streamers are super eager to collab, to chat, to develop community. So that's a really big tip. And Twitter, like Maddie said, very, very good community on there.
Okay, I guess my advice would probably be just start a project and do something. I think the best way that you can get into the community is by participating. So start a podcast. I don't know, start a Twitch stream. Ask if you can help do the marketing for something or other. Getting involved and showing people the skills you have is the best way to engender, good relationships with people and have people recommend you to others. Also, I think a really big thing during this time is make sure you're looking after your health and your mental health and your physical health. If you're in Melbourne, definitely use that hour that you're allowed to be outside to go for a walk and just get away from everything. I know I need to take that advice myself, because I end up just living online constantly. And sometimes it can get really overwhelming and it can be really defeating because you feel like you're not really going anywhere, both physically and just also in the community. But making sure that you just have a chance to look after yourself as well and not feel like you have to be moving all the time and you have to be kicking goals every single day is really important.
I think that's so true. Just, as we've said, get out there, do the thing, go for the roles, start the project, and just, get involved with the community. So I think that's all fantastic advice, everyone. I want to thank you all so much for giving up your time to provide your knowledge, your tips, your expertise. As Vandie said, all our DMs are open on Twitter. Mads is Shadowfax, just FYI, so follow her on Twitter as well. And again, I want to thank you all for being here today and thank all the viewers too for watching. So again, thank you. We look forward to seeing some of you in our Twitch streams or in our Twitter DMs. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks.